So Britain sees itself as a global military power, right? But what if that's all just a dangerous fantasy? We're going to dive into a speech from one of the UK's top generals that pretty much sent shockwaves through the entire defense community, because he basically argues just that.
And look, this was not your typical dry conference speech. When General Lord Nick Houghton got up to speak, you could hear a pin drop. And the one phrase that just kept going up afterwards, a wake-up call. A really stark, totally unfiltered look at what's actually going on with Britain's security.
All right, so who is this messenger delivering such a tough message? Well, we're talking about General Lord Nick Houghton. He's a former chief of the defense staff. Now, this is a guy who has seen it all from the inside. The inner workings of the government in Whitehall, military readiness, you name it, he's seen it from the very, very top. So yeah, when he talks, people listen. His words carry some serious weight.
So what was his main point? What's the big idea here? It's that the story Britain tells itself, about its own national security, it's just dangerously out of touch with reality. You've got the myth on one side, and then you've got the cold, hard truth on the other.
And believe me, Houghton does not mince words. He calls it a delusional narrative. He says the core problem is this: the UK is trying to project this image of being a huge global military power.
But they're trying to fund it with just 2% of their total economic output, their GDP. And that GDP isn't even growing. So that number you see, that 2%, that's everything. That's the huge, gaping mismatch between the ambition and the actual resources on the table. It's really the heart of this whole debate.
Houghton has a name for this: collective self-deception. He's basically saying that for years, government after government has just papered over the cracks. They've pretended things are better than they are. And the result? A really dangerous lack of investment in the stuff that actually matters for being ready. Things like having enough equipment in stockpiles and having a strong defense industry that can build what you need.
Okay, so it's not just about the money, though. The problem goes way deeper. It's that the whole idea of what security even means has fundamentally changed. And Houghton's big warning is that the UK is really struggling to keep up with this completely new kind of battlefield.
Just think about the difference for a second. The old way of thinking about security was pretty straightforward, right? It was all about tanks, ships, planes. But security in the 21st century? Wow, it's so much broader, so much more complex. We're talking about everything from the news and information you see on your phone to the supply chains that keep food in the supermarkets.
And he got really specific about what these new battlegrounds look like. This isn't some sci-fi movie stuff, he warns. This is happening right now. We're talking about the weaponization of truth, disinformation campaigns designed to manipulate how we all think, and even direct attacks on critical things like our financial systems, our satellites, our power grids.
And here's what's really scary. Houghton says there's this massive gap in awareness. Most people, the general public, they just aren't really aware of these new kinds of dangers. And at the same time, the government's policies are way behind, just struggling to catch up to what's actually happening on the ground.
So, okay, if the threats are totally different and the money is tight, what do you do? Where do you even start? Well, according to Houghton, you have to start by fixing what he calls a broken system. You have to fix it from the inside out.
And get this is just incredibly frank. You've got a former chief of defense admitting, yeah, the Ministry of Defense is slow, bureaucratic, and doesn't like to take risks. He's basically saying that stereotype, it's not wrong. And what that means is that the small, agile, innovative companies, the ones actually building the tools to fight these new threats, they can't even get a foot in the door.
But here's the thing. He didn't just complain. He wasn't just pointing out all the problems. He actually laid out a clear 4-step plan for how to fix it. Step 1, get a strategy that's based on reality, not just wishful thinking. Step 2, put a powerful director in charge who can actually make things happen. 3, create a real partnership with industry, not just a competition. And finally, step 4, seriously invest in the stockpiles and the manufacturing that you need to actually win a modern fight.
And that brings us to his final and maybe most important piece of the puzzle, and it's a huge one. His argument is that the government absolutely cannot do this alone. It's just not possible. It's going to require a massive shift in thinking and a totally new kind of partnership.
And this is where he turned directly to the investors in the audience. He basically said, listen up, national security isn't just the government's problem anymore. It needs private money. It needs the financial world to step up and see investing in defense and national resilience as, well, not just a good thing to do, but as an urgent, critical, and totally legitimate opportunity.
So you see, even with all these stark warnings,
His final message wasn't about despair. It wasn't doom and gloom at all. It was actually a call to action. It was a rallying cry for everyone, policymakers, the tech innovators, the investors, to finally come together and build a safer, more secure future.
Which really leaves us with one big question to think about, doesn't it? In this new age, with threats that are so complex and so different from the past, could it be that Britain's greatest defense isn't some new jet or new ship, but a whole new way of working together?